Hey everybody, here we have an Acer part system. It's been around 2 months since I previously posted a part system video because the Google Computer Works store decided to close up and move across town, and I pretty much boycotted the place for 2 months. For that reason, and for the fact that I had so much stuff in regards to computers I had to fix and get back together so I could sell these refurbished systems. And I finally depleted my stock some and needed some parts again. So here we go. Bought this system. Didn't get the opportunity to test it in store because they got rid of the testing center when they moved to the new store. So I pretty much had to take a gamble. I didn't pay too much for this thing though. Still got my money's worth out of it. It was $19.99. Let's have a look inside. I installed a crappy stick of RAM to test this thing with. I got some crappy DDR2 memory. It's 256 megabytes PC2 3200, junk memory, but good enough for testing. So anyways, here's looking at the system. I don't know what kind of CPU it has. Obviously we know it's an AMD socket AM2. I don't know what kind it is though. Might be an X2. Power supply is a FSP group, 300 watt, dual 12 rail unit. And like many of the Acer cases of that era, very nice, tool-free design. These make great cases for custom builds for the fact that they have lots of USB ports, your audio jacks, and obviously tool-free drive bays. And look how many hard drive bays these cases have. These are mini towers for crying out loud. 4 hard drive bays. I mean, the only difference between a mid-tower system is there's 2 less 5¼ inch drive bays, but in everything else in regards to drive bays, it's exactly the same. So you can get one of those premium micro ATX motherboards and make a nice system out of this little thing. So anyways, now it's time to test the system. Just going to turn it on and see what it does. Helps if you plug it in. I unplugged it, of course. I already know exactly how this thing's going to behave, so. We have no video. Nothing. And the funny thing about these Acer, these Acer motherboards is smart fans still work even when the motherboard doesn't post. Now usually if your motherboard doesn't post, the fans will run at maximum RPMs. But in this case they're not. We're going to shut down the system again and demonstrate that. Motherboard does not respond to the power button when you try to turn it off, so we'll turn it off this way. Now have a listen. I'll put the camera up close so you can listen closely. I'm going to power it on now. Have a listen. Kind of hard to hear, but for a brief second the fans were about max speed and they slowed down to their smart fan settings. And I'm noticing some bad signs here with this thing. Number one, CPU core is absolutely cold. It means our CPU is not really even doing much anything. Also, our Northbridge heatsink is cold. No heat whatsoever down here. I tested to make sure that the motherboard was getting 12 volts up here in this plug, and it is. So, motherboard's getting power, but it's not doing anything. This sounds like a classic failure to me, and it happens really often with NVIDIA chip motherboards. The Northbridge gets so hot due to poor cooling, the BGA connection, ball grid array connection between the chips, Northbridge chip and the motherboard fails, more or less the little solder balls crack, and you get this, a dead motherboard. And I think I know why here. It's because I believe they may be using bubblegum compound under this heatsink, which is definitely a no-no nowadays with newer chipsets like this. And yeah, this thing is absolutely cold to the touch. It behaves no different without RAM. I hear no beep errors when there's no RAM installed. This motherboard does have a speaker for that, and it's right over there. So you get no beep errors without memory. Classic sign of a completely dead motherboard. But anyways, let's go and recap what this thing actually has. Still had the modem inside. It's a little, you know, your basic fax modem. And has a DVD burner. Pull down this door. You get access to a card reader with a FireWire connection. You know, it hasn't been too long since I got a system just like this. Same motherboard, and it was also dead. And I can tell you right now, just by looking at this motherboard, that Foxconn is the OEM. We have Leland capacitors. We have a heatsink here that says AMD chipset on it. I built a system a few years back, yeah, in 2010, with the Foxconn motherboard. Had this exact same heatsink. Now that system, as far as I know, is still working fine today. The owner has decided to part ways with me. He don't ever talk to me or nothing like that anymore. But as far as I know, that system still works. So now for a burning question: what CPU do we have with this? Let's find out. Now, what I'm planning on doing with this thing, seeing if the motherboard's dead, I'm going to just swap out motherboards and put in a different motherboard, so that way I can refurbish this computer. I purchased 3 white label drives today to go into various refurbished computers that I'm working with. One of them is going in that e-machine system I recently made a video of. That 400 gig Seagate drive in it is starting to fail. The Crystal Disk Info software caught that. Anyways, now I got the system on its side. You can get a better view of it now. Now that there's light shining in here. Now I tell you, it's such a shame that this board here is bad, because it's got a lot of connections over here. You know, for your audio, your USBs, your FireWire, your LAN. It's even got an HDMI connection there. This will make a nice motherboard for, you know, a home theater computer, a cheap home theater PC. You know, I might try reflowing it and see if I can get it to work, and I might save that motherboard for a potential future use in a personal home theater system. So anyways, now that you can kind of see inside the system, let's go ahead and pull off that heatsink. You know, the funny thing here about Acer is, out of all the OEMs, it seems like Acer applies the most crappiest cooler for AMD systems I've ever seen. I mean, their Intel systems, they apply good heat sinks, but with their AMDs, this is not all that great. Now let's see if we even have a CPU in this thing. Hey guys, we're missing something. Look at this. Oh, there it is. It's another reason why you gotta be very careful with these AMD boards. Now I'm curious if that CPU was even, you know, firmly attached. This ain't the first time this has happened, and it ain't the last time it's going to happen. Your AMD CPU just pulls out of the socket like this. And this is why I like Intel. I mean, I like AMD processors, but I don't like their sockets. I prefer Intel's LGA design because it holds the CPU down on your motherboard. That way, when you go to take your heatsink off, you ain't got to worry about your CPU pulling off. So now, let me see if I can carefully remove the CPU. Yeah, I'm very curious here about this. I think our motherboard's dead, but I'm going to reattach that CPU and just see what it does. Because honestly, it acted like it wasn't getting connection with the processor, making me think somebody took the heatsink off with the CPU still stuck on it, and they tried to reattach it, resulting in that. Here's our CPU. I'm going to reattach it into the socket. Also, we got a crappy thermal connection, but this is going to be a temporary test, so we should be okay. Let me check and make sure this rests down. Oh, we got a bent pin. It's just one, thankfully. Just one bent pin. You know, I think there's a possibility that, as I think I had just mentioned, I believe our processor was not fully attached into the socket. Right now I'm carefully realigning that pin. Trying to make it straight again. So the way you can do this is carefully use your fingernail to straighten those things, but be very careful because they're very fragile. And now we're going to see if this processor will sit down into the socket again. Make sure the socket's good and clean. I think it kind of helps when you can see what I'm doing. Sorry about that, guys. But anyways, make sure we have no more bent pins. If your CPU does not go into the socket, do not press down with excessive force or nothing like that, because you will screw up your processor if you do that. I guarantee it. Got one more pin here we need to realign. You just go through this process carefully until the chip goes down into the socket like it's supposed to. I mean, this is called a zero insertion force socket. You can see, there you go. It's in there now. I'm going to reattach this heatsink and see if it posts. See if the system posts. Which I kind of have my doubts, but hey, it's worth a try. Yeah, I can definitely say this ain't one of my favorite CPU coolers. Though I will reuse it. Let's go ahead and plug our connections back up and let's see what we get here. Probably nothing. You know, this won't be the first time I had a system like this where the CPU was not properly inserted. The motherboard played dead like this, but I'm not sure if this is the same case this time. I think the motherboard does in fact have problems, but let's go ahead and find out for sure. My stick of RAM is still in there. It is in fact a dead motherboard. Guys, still having the same symptoms. No video. Heatsink's cool to the touch. Yep, it's a bad board. So now we'll go ahead and power this thing back off and unplug our connections. Now let's see what kind of CPU we have here. It's an Athlon 64X2 4400 Plus. So, Even though the system had a bad board, I'd still say I got my money's worth out of it. Not bad. Not bad at all. There it is. Saved it from near death, from bent pins. Definitely can reuse it in another system. I think we're doing pretty good here. So anyways, this wraps up in another part system video. Any questions or comments? Feel free to ask them. Thanks for watching.